Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Maria Volpe. I'm a professor of sociology at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, excuse me, where I also direct the dispute resolution program. These breakfasts are co-hosted each month by the Association for Conflict Resolution of Greater New York and the City University of New York Dispute Resolution Center at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. This is our 253rd breakfast since 9/11 when I started these breakfasts. The recordings are posted at www.acr-gny.org and now also posted at, we have a long email address, www.jjay.cny.edu/dispute resolution, and you'll find all the videos there as well.
And I'm sure Nikki will post it on chat.
Right. And these breakfasts would not be possible each month if it wasn't for a wonderful team that I work with: Julie Denny, Matthew Latimer, Nikki Borofsky, and Emily Skinner. Each month we have different speakers, different topics. So it's, for some of you, it's your first time with us. For some, you've been with us for years. Welcome to all. We couldn't have a more timely conversation this morning around a topic that many of us spend a lot of time answering questions about. Alyson, you probably got a bunch of them, which is probably why you started thinking about ADR as a first career. How do we get people into this field? So many people are interested. There are billions of conflicts. We should be able to find ways to navigate this terrain. And it seems as though almost every day, some of us get calls about how people can enter the field. What do you do? How do you get started? And so we're so delighted this morning, Alyson, to have you with us to talk about perhaps the number one topic of the field that, hard to believe after all these years, we're still answering and still asking and answering the same question. So welcome to New York, to our monthly breakfast, and Julie will now more formally introduce us to Alyson. Take it away, Julie.
Thank you. Alyson Carrel is a clinical professor at Northwestern's Pritzker School of Law. She's also co-director of the Law School's Center on Negotiation and Mediation. She is a leader, presenter, and trainer who always encourages others to try something new, look at an issue differently, recognize there are many paths forward. She was, prior to this, inaugural Assistant Dean of Law and Technology at the Pritzker School of Law, focusing on legal technology and innovation. And she self-describes herself as a tech-curious legal educator. Much of her work has been related to that curiosity. So share with us, Alyson, your curiosity and the decisions and conclusions you've come to because of those investigations. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Julie and Maria and the whole team for putting this together. I mean, as those of you just heard, and if you were here for the first half hour, I mean, it's just really unbelievable what this community has been able to do in coming together and for so long. And it's a real honor to be with you all. I'm going to talk about ADR as a first career. This is a real passion project for me that stems from my own career path. As a 16-year-old in the suburbs of Chicago, someone recommended that I attend a conflict resolution in the workplace seminar. I don't know why I went. I was 16. Like, who goes to something like that when you're 16? But I went. Actually, I can tell you why. I was because an ex-boyfriend's parents were the ones that told me to go. But I went and I was hooked. I mean, I was just hooked. I'm the child of divorced parents. As soon as they started talking about not only the concepts of an interest-based approach to resolving conflict, but a process by which to do so, I just was like, I wish my parents had had a chance to do something like this. I knew right then that this was something I wanted to do with my life, but I didn't have any idea how I was going to do that. I explored a number of different avenues to try to do it. Some worked, some, well, no, many of them didn't work. But it was when I was at University of Florida as an undergraduate student that I finally just decided to design my own degree. And I got a internship at the local courthouse helping out with their family mediation program and child dependency mediation program. I have always felt so fortunate that a month before I graduated, the woman who really mentored me and was my boss in that internship decided to move on and pursue some other things in her own career. And that opened up a job. It was a part-time job, 24 hours a week at the local courthouse. I think I made $20,000 a year. I was playing in a little rock band in the Southeast. And so it was a dream for a 20-some-year-old. I had my career job 24 hours a week. And then on the weekends, I went and performed and played in this little pop rock punk band. So I have only been doing ADR since then. So before I went to law school, after I went to law school, and in the 30 years since I first attended that conflict resolution in the workplace workshop, I've gotten kudos, but also a lot of skepticism and difficult advice that really tried to push me away from pursuing this. So it is a personal passion project to talk about ADR as a first career. I want to share a little bit about that with you. You might have read in the description of today's program that we started a video blog to try to capture some of these stories. I really want to focus on the blog and how that has provided me a chance to hear from others and really dig into what people's experience has been. So let's see. If you want, let's just check in with y'all. So you can unmute your video and use a visual. You can use the raise hand function, but I'm just curious. So first of all, how many of you consider ADR to be your main occupation, full-time role, but ADR is it for you? I'm seeing some hands. All right. Yep. And people are learning how to use that raise hand function. Love it. Very good. Okay. In the blog, I asked people if they are doing ADR as a full-time career, and I did speak about it very broadly. So I used ADR on purpose to try to capture as many different stories as possible. Let me share my screen so I can give us a little bit of structure for this. Okay, so let me just tell you a little about what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk a little bit about the blog's original purpose, how it came about, how folks are using the blog, what it means to choose this path of ADR as a first career. I'm gonna try to go back to something that Nikki was sharing about what future opportunities I think exist, especially because of technology for individuals who want to pursue ADR as a first career. And then a pathway, trying to create a more inclusive and clear pathway for folks who might want to pursue this. So the blog's origins and purpose. So 8 years ago, Donna Arez-Navote, who was at Cardozo, now at University of Florida School of Law, and Tracy Frisch, who's at AAA, put together a panel on this idea that ADR could be something you pursue as a first career and invited me to participate. We had a wonderful conversation during the conference. We were really excited to be able to share our stories. And afterward, I had some people come up to me and say, you know, this is great. I'm so happy for you all that you all were able to do this. But do you want to be telling folks that this is really, truly possible? Because it's so hard to get a job in ADR if you're right out of law school or right after getting a master's degree. And that caused me pause. I was like, oh my gosh, did we just do harm standing up here telling people this was possible and then setting them up for disappointment? So after the conference or after the panel, just talked to some other people who were attending the conference. And it dawned on me that a lot of folks at the ABA section on dispute resolution also had ADR as their first career. So David Mora at the time, who was the director of the section, Vik Kapoor, who was on the council, Brian Pappas, who was working with me in the competition, the mediation competition, was active in the section. Geetha Ravindra, who was became the chair, I think the next year, also had ADR as her first career. I thought, wait a second, we didn't do anything wrong. This is actually possible. People are doing it. It's just not the prevailing narrative. And yes, while it may be difficult, what we need to do is just start telling the story. Just start putting these stories out there and help people seeing what's happening and what may be a possibility for folks. And so I decided to start this little blog. I am tech curious, as Julie said. I am not a technician at all or technically. I guess it's all relative. At the law school, among my colleagues, some might call me tech savvy, but when you really talk to people who know technology, I know so very little. But from those pop rock punk band days, I've always been into DIY. And so I was like, you know what, let's just do this. Let's figure out a way to get a blog. Let's just start capturing stories. And so I started this blog. I just started asking people, hey, do you want to share your story? Do you want to talk a little bit about what your experience was, why you wanted to get into ADR, what advice you got along the way? Did you follow that advice, or why didn't you follow that advice? And what advice would you give now? Nikki, first of all, can I just say you are amazing. She's dropping links to things that I'm mentioning. I really appreciate that, Nikki. Thank you. You're the best. All right, Nikki does rock. So start collecting these stories, and very quickly I gathered over 50 different examples of people who had similarly chosen ADR as a first career. Again, this is a passion project, so this is not my full-time job. I work at Northwestern Law's Center on Negotiation Mediation, so I'm teaching full-time. So I would work on this on the side. This is something I was just really interested in. But after I hit about 50, I kind of stopped for a while. And thanks to the ABA and thanks to this group, I've started gathering some more, and I'm interested in getting additional stories. If you want to share yours on the blog, we should chat. So Nikki put in the chat a link to the blog, so feel free to check it out. I want to highlight just a few things. So to be eligible to be on the blog, you just need to work in any position related to ADR. So any process, could be mediation, arbitration, restorative justice, it could be in any role. So it could be administrative, it could be somebody who's training, teaching, or it could be as a neutral. It can be in any context. So it can be in the courts, in nonprofits, part of schools. It can be any practice area, employment discrimination, commercial, community. But it does need to be your full-time or main occupation. This is not something that people are doing on the side. This is something they are spending the majority of their time doing. It is how they are making a living. The last piece for the eligibility is that it has to be relatively recent from graduating with something. It could be an undergraduate degree. Most likely it has been with a master's degree or a law degree. So any thoughts on why I might have wanted to have such a broad eligibility. So any position, any process, role, context, or practice area, you can unmute, you can throw this in chat, you can use the, actually, you probably shouldn't just unmute because there's just too many people, but you can use the raise hand function or throw it into chat. Why might I have, in starting this blog, decided to intentionally use such a broad understanding of ADR as a first career? Thanks, Lorna. Yeah, so to show that there's many paths to get there. Yep. Any other thoughts? It is an interdisciplinary field, so there are just a lot of opportunities. So there's many different paths, there's a lot of different opportunities, but you have to look for them. It is a broad concept. Why not allow those who have changed careers to participate in this? Tony, I can definitely talk about that in a moment. Diversity of background is a strength of the field. So there's a lot of different ways you can get into this, a lot of different roles you can take on. Kishore, did you want to unmute and share your thoughts?
What you see, I think, since you see, disputes can be of various types, and the people who are having disputes, they have different approaches and attitudes. Broader perspective of the disputes settlement process are the people who are going to settle the disputes. So better it is, because it is really, after all, you see, it's an emotional aspect also. It is just not just law or some money or property. Unless or until we are able to strike a rapport with the fellow human beings, it's next to impossible to proceed. And that's why we must have a very broad possible background of all the persons who are involved in dispute settlement. Thank you.
Thanks, Kishore. The audio was a little hard to hear, but let me just summarize what I heard. So one, recognizing that you can have a variety of different backgrounds to get into ADR. And I want to talk about that one for a moment, because as somebody who found mediation at age 16, I didn't have a law background. I didn't have any substantive experience, any career to rely on. I worked in the court system in Florida prior to going to law school. You know, like I said, it was my dream job, and it allowed me to, again, play in that little side band and have some fun on the weekends as a 20-some-year-old. And I kept being told, you have to go to law school. You have to be a lawyer. And we know that's not true. But in 1999 and 2000, when I was trying to think of what is the next step in my career, my sister, who is in Brooklyn, so go New York, said to me, you know, I think you should go to law school. And I fought her because she's the older sister. I was like, no, I don't. You don't understand. You don't have to be a lawyer. And then I realized, as much as I hate it when my sister is right, if that's what the user thinks, then I should probably go get that degree just to get the credential. And so one of my hopes in doing this blog and using such a broad definition for who is eligible, again, any process, any role, any context, any practice area, any background, was to just try and dispel this myth that you have to be a lawyer, even though I sort of succumbed to that and decided to go to law school myself. Let me just go back to the chat and see if there were a few other thoughts. Oh, Noam, thank you. Yep, dispel the fallacy that you need to be a lawyer, because we know you don't. I decided to go to law school to get my JD just for that credential. I chose a law school, the University of Missouri, that at the time had the #1 ADR program. It set me up for an incredible network of individuals who were similar, dedicated to the field of ADR. But I never went to law school to become a lawyer. I went to law school just to get that JD. We'll talk a little bit more about what happened once I was there. I love it. Mr. Smith, this idea of being a pastor and realizing that the law is probably not what's going to help you deal with church disputes. It is really going to be, someone who is part of that community and understands that faith. So lots of reasons why it might be important to have this broader definition for eligibility to the blog. The real reason though I did it was because I didn't believe I would be able to have a robust set of stories if I limited it to full-time mediators who were just neutrals. As someone who has been trying to make a career out of this for 30 years, I didn't graduate from undergrad from college and immediately become a full-time neutral. I became an administrator. I was managing a child protection mediation program in the Florida state courts. When I graduated law school, I didn't become a full-time neutral. I became the training director at the Center for Conflict Resolution in Chicago, a large community mediation center. And from there, I went into academia and have been teaching through the Center on Negotiation and Mediation at Northwestern. So I've never considered myself a full-time neutral, but I do consider myself a full-time ADR professional. And so honestly, I had a bias. I just assumed that there wouldn't be that many people. So I wanted to make it as broad as possible, really to try to make my point that ADR as a first career is a thing, even if it doesn't look like being a full-time neutral. So eligibility was really broad. So using the blog, I'm really curious to hear from folks who might have been familiar with the blog, how you have potentially used it. I have seen people refer to it in guides to starting a career. I've seen faculty assign it to students to give them some videos just to watch, some encouragement that it's possible. Has anyone used the blog and tell us a little bit about how you've used it? Maria.
So I, as a faculty member, have assigned it to my students and had them extract from, I usually have them watch a bunch of them, have them extract, what they have found. Were there any patterns? What did they learn? And I have found it to be incredibly invaluable. My students are undergraduates and they absolutely love the blogs. And it also helps that a lot of them are from New York so that they can relate to them because our students are from New York.
I love it. So not only the general stories and the trends that they can pull from it, but all the specific, like, oh, these are folks in my community and look at what they've done. So hearing about some of the organizations where people have successfully created a career and specific roles that are available in New York. Because New York is a really robust space for mediation, more so than Chicago. So it's been a pleasure to be able to talk to folks in New York who have been able to do this. Yaniv.
Hi, good morning. I just wanted to share also that, I was a former special education teacher, and now I'm very much interested in the ADR space. And it's been very confusing for me to navigate the space because it's so robust and there are so many different ways to become involved. So I'm still getting through the blog, but from what I've seen of the blog, it's been very encouraging and very comforting to know that there are so many different routes into the field. And so I look to it for encouragement predominantly, and I'm going to keep going with it as well.
Right on, Yaniv. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. And I hope it's encouraging. That was honestly one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, is I felt so defeated after that initial presentation at the ABA conference when I felt like it was implied that I may have done harm by saying that this was possible, but really people would just be disappointed. Any other thoughts of ways that you've used the blog, or anything you think of in ways we might use the blog that haven't been mentioned? Okay. So let me go and share my screen again. Sorry, whenever we have discussion, and I'm going to try to pause a few different times throughout this for us to have discussion. I'll try to get rid of the shared screen because it can be distracting, I know. So I know folks are using it. I can see that it gets a lot of views. I'm curious how else it might be used. As I mentioned, I kind of let it go. I mean, about 2016, 2017, I kind of stopped looking for individuals to be on the blog. So it's been exciting to see that getting a little bit of traction again, and I've added a few more videos since. But I think then it goes back to that question, should we be using the blog? Does it set people up for frustration or failure? You know, I don't think so, but I do think it's important that we ask this question because there are some issues that as a woman that I hadn't considered in the past. I'll just say it that way. So choosing this path of ADR as a first career, where does it come from? And Tony, you had earlier said, why don't I include individuals who came to this as a second or third career? And I think this might capture my answer to it. If it doesn't, I'm happy to go back to that. So people who choose ADR as a first career tend to be individuals who have said, I can't do anything else. I had a student that just graduated in May, and she chose an alternative path. And I asked her, she's working at a large law firm, but in a staff position. So she's making half as much as her classmates. She's making good money, so I'm not going to feel bad for her, but it's still half as much as her classmates are making at the same firm. And I said, do you feel like you sacrificed? And she said, no, I would be sacrificing if I was in the role of one of those associates. I would be dying inside if I did that. She almost dropped out of law school multiple times. She's just like, felt like she was lost, very despondent. And when she started to see that there were other paths, other careers, other roles that she could take on, all of a sudden she was ready to embrace the legal profession again. She is now thriving and excited, also has good work-life balance. And so the financial piece for her was not a sacrifice. The folks that tend to get into ADR as a first career tend to have this internal need to do it. So in 2015, the ABA asked me to write a short article for the DR magazine about ADR as a first career. And so I went back and I talked to a few individuals that were on the blog and got some quotes for them that I thought might be illustrative to this. So Max Steele, who at the time was working at the Center for Conflict Resolution as the volunteer director, now works at, I think he's at Rotary International doing conflict resolution work, but he said, ADR is just in my blood. Like, it is who I am. Laura Noah, who is a full-time court family mediator, said, it is difficult to describe why my choice to work in mediation makes me happy, because in some ways it transcends words for me. I love this work because it fits. It's like a favorite pair of shoes or a coat. I think the other thing that she said to me was, it was like when she holds hands with her wife. It's comforting. It feels good. And that's a very different motivation than a lot of folks have when considering what their career is going to be. Notice this is not things like how much money I'm going to make, how much status I'm going to have, how this is going to take me to the next step in my career. This is about it fitting some piece of identity. So I thought I would go ahead and share just a snippet from one of the videos. And I've chosen a video that actually doesn't, I didn't put up on the blog because it is a panel discussion by 4 individuals who were featured on the blog, who recently came together to talk a little bit about reflecting on why they participated in the blog and what they've been doing since being on the blog, since they created their video like 6 years ago. So let me go to their just their little snippet. Let me see if I can get to it. Here we go. So this is, can you see it? Nope. Okay.
Not
Can you
yet.
see it now?
Yes.
Is it there now? Oh,
Yeah.
good. Okay. So this is a video with Jason Harper in the top left. At the bottom left is Ashley Davis. The bottom right is Oladeji Tiamiu. And the top right is Gururaj Kumar. And Gururaj, I'm just going to play a short clip of him talking a little bit about his initial experience in starting with ADR, and again, how it just sort of fit.
The summer after my sophomore year in college, this is not ADR related, but I worked at a summer camp for people with mental and physical disabilities, and it was a real powerful experience for me. And when I finished that summer, I decided that every summer during my collegiate, while I was in college, that I wasn't going to go do something traditional. I wanted to do something really interesting and something different, and just really explore that. And during my junior year in college, I came across an ad in the school paper. Some of you may not know that there was a time that colleges actually had a physical paper at their colleges that you could get every day. And so in the paper, there was an ad for a program for it was the internet IIMCR, and there's another panelist that actually was at the same program that I was at, the International Institute for Mediation and Conflict Resolution, and it was a.
I just have to pause there because I'm the other person that was at that same program. So this was 1996, and Gururaj and I first met in The Hague, Netherlands, at this month-long program as college juniors. And we reconnected like 10 years later and found out we both had ended up pursuing this as our career. So that was really exciting. We're gonna go back to Gururaj, sorry.
Month-long symposium at The Hague in Holland, and threw my name in the hat, got lucky enough to get in, and it was an amazing experience. It was just really 30 days of intensive, just hearing different speakers around different aspects of conflict resolution, ADR work around the world, and how people are doing it from, Oladeji, what you shared around some of your work that you were really inspired you to corner reporting and mediation at the highest level. And it really sparked an interest in me. And then I happened to graduate from college and did not do well. And so I was fixing photocopiers at night and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I took the LSAT twice. The LSAT told me that law school did not want me, but I needed to make a decision in my life to say I need to do something other than fix photocopiers. And I thought back on that program and that summer at The Hague and how influential that was. And then I searched out grad programs around peace and conflict resolution, and that's really what jump-started it. And from there, it was the right decision. I think, Jason, the way you framed it is like when you went to that training and you were like, this is it. There's never been a question that is this it or not. There's been questions about how am I doing it and where I should be doing it. But the values and the impact that this type of work can make is what keeps me going and what's really sparked this. And so Oladeji.
Okay, we'll go back here. So that's just a snippet from Gururaj talking about, similarly to Mac and Laura that I had referenced before, just how this fit. And so I think it was really important to give space for that experience compared to the experience of folks who maybe were successful in another career and then transitioned, or had a long, lush, wonderful career and retired and moved into ADR. Those are all great paths. This is nothing against those paths, but this was a space for something a little bit different. So my hope was to give individuals who chose ADR in a way that others might have seen as a sacrifice, a chance to describe why it wasn't a sacrifice to them, why it meant so much to them. Let me just look at my notes real quick. I apologize. Okay, but then let me also share with you another clip, this time from Jason Harper. Again, the gentleman in the top left, he works in California in the LA area. And he's going to share a story about some of the challenges when he knew this was something he wanted to do, though, what he sort of came up against. So let me share that real quick. Thank you for your patience. Here we go. I have it timed up here. And make it full screen. Here we go. This is Jason.
It still
What is
appears.
the black
There's a
thing?
challenge of credibility.
Ah, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, that is a pop-up window of all of you on my screen. So I apologize that it was blocking. I'm gonna minimize so that it's not blocking there. Better?
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. Here's Jason.
When I was first starting in, I told my mom that I wanted to be a mediator, and what she did was amazing. Looking back on it, she went on the JAMS website and she showed the panel and what they all looked like and what they all did, and she said, "Okay, well, let's take a look at this person. This person was practicing law for 30 years, is now a retired judge, and is on this neutral panel. This person was practicing for 25 years and is now doing, X, Y, and Z and charges this amount. Where do you fit into all of these?" And most of these were older white faces. And I had just turned, I was 29 at the time. And so she told me, "This is not going to go as easy as you think it will. I know that you feel like this is it, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as you think it will." And that right there turned out to be, true to a certain extent. I think every day was a fight for credibility, based on my age, based on, what I looked like. And I had to combat that with my knowledge base. So I had to really dig and dig and dig and dig and prove to people every day that I was, not just knowledgeable, but accessible. People could relate to me. And for some groups, it was easier than others, for sure. But that challenge was there all the time. And so that's something that was a challenge for sure that I've encountered and still.
Great. So I wanted to just pause there for a second and see if folks would like to share a little bit about maybe their experience, for those of you that might have chosen ADR as a first career. Sort of what was your experience that made you say, "Yep, this is what I want to do," and the challenges of realizing, "Oh, but nobody looks like me," whether that's age, race. You don't see anybody who's doing it this early in their career. So would anybody want to share a little about your story?
Hello?
Maria?
I was going to share my student stories. They are young. At our college, most of our students are students of color. And they're in a dispute resolution program. They would love to do the work. The challenge is the very limited number of compensated positions. They, at their stage of the career, cannot afford to do substantial volunteer work. They do need a job. And in many contexts, there's a need for expertise, whether it's process or subject matter. And at their stage of the career, they're even younger than law students, with even less experience, less lived experience, really struggle with how they can break. And many of them are able to get jobs as staff positions, as you mentioned earlier, in the various programs, but it's almost near impossible for them to be practitioners, other than when they're working with younger people. So many of them can do mediation, particularly restorative justice in the schools or in contexts where they are the elders of the group.
Thanks, Maria. I think that's an interesting piece. I'm really reflecting on Jason's experience. So who were we trying to sell our services to, and in what context? So thanks, Marie. Nikki, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I don't want to hijack this as an advertisement, but I did want to just, since Jason named JAMS in his clip, one of the things since I've been working at JAMS is our efforts to ensure that our panelists are more diverse. And one of the initiatives that we have is called a My Story initiative, and it really is similar to your blog, although a much narrower scope of what it means to be a JAMS panelist. It's a really high bar to be successful as a full-time mediator, arbitrator, neutral facilitator. But I think there are nice kind of parallels in that a lot of our neutrals, especially those who are more diverse and don't look like the stereotypical kind of pathway of, retired federal judge necessarily, have experiences that cobble together a bunch of different, career trajectories and really build on the importance of kind of using those to launch their career. And from my perspective, a lot of what I do is really support and help the practice building and careers of neutrals. And I got to say, there's still, I think, a bit of a disconnect with, we want diversity and we want inclusion, but we also want that law degree and that, stint as a judge and all those kind of things. And that's why these kinds of meetings and this kind of a community is so important, to actually get to know people who are really talented, who might not tick the kind of quick assessment boxes that are used to figure out who you want to select to be the person or people in the room helping you to resolve conflict.
Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, because I had a somewhat similar experience to Jason as a young white woman, but because none of the commercial mediators looked like me. But I was working with Robin Davis, who most recently was at University of Florida running their community or their mediation clinic, which now Donna Arosnavote is running, who I think is with us and helped, was the creator of the first panel that started all of this. Hi, Donna. And then I moved to CCR and I work under Marilyn Smith, who practiced law for just a couple years, but then became a full-time mediator and administrator in ADR. Like, I saw a lot of white women who were doing this. And so I thought, this is possible for me, even though it's not clear and aren't that many individuals that look like me. So I thought that was an interesting similarity and difference. And we're going to talk a little bit more about diversity in our field, but I had a couple other hands up. So T. DeWitt Smith.
Good morning. I began to look at the idea of being a mediator at first because of the work that I do as a pastor. And my wife happened to say to me, I'm a PhD candidate at Nova Southeastern University. And Dr. Evan Hoffman first introduced me to the ACR Roundtable. But in getting into this, I'd been called in. I'm also a former denominational officer, CEO. Began to get into this. People called in when pastors were in trouble or churches felt themselves in trouble, or pastor and church were at odds with each other or needed some help in working through some things that reflected in the community at large. And I'd been called in several times with other panelists to talk about what we needed to do to solve the problem. And basically it was neutrality, but I'm noticing that ADR leaves you a bit more room to push an issue when it needs to be pushed. And as Christopher Moore talks about nudging people, in that right direction. So I'm in it for that. And I would like to, I had an opportunity to present a couple of years ago to a group of pastors about mediation and working on keeping their health by training their ministry leaders to do facilitation or mediation when small group conflicts come up. So that's how I'm into this, and hopefully we can open a center. That's what I'm working on after graduation in the community as an ADR center. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for sharing that, and congrats. I've got a lot of exciting projects and opportunities ahead of you. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Your story reminds me a little bit of another thing that Jason mentioned in a different part of the video, which was in order for him to be successful, he had to realize, well, what might be my niche? So, you know, as someone who's not active in her church or synagogue, for me to go out and try to present my skills as a facilitator and a mediator that I think are great to a church community isn't going to relate, isn't going to connect as much. And to have someone who is familiar, is a leader, and can also then bring the facilitation, I think is an incredible connection. Jason had been a teacher for a couple of years, a math teacher. And so one of the things that he realized when he was going to do dispute resolution, he wanted to focus on education and be able to demonstrate that again, it was only a little bit of experience. This was not years of experience. He did not retire from the field of education into dispute resolution, but he took those few years and recognized this might be my niche and a way that I might connect with folks in a way that others may not. Emmett Ward, I see your hand is up.
Oops. Hey, thanks. The video you played really resonated with me. ADR is my first career. And I was fortunate that the grad program I was in, there was a community mediation center associated at Salisbury University. So I was able to actually practice, get cases under my belt. And that set me up for a career. I ended up being fortunate. I worked on a research project for a little bit in ADR, and then landed a job as a staff mediator at a circuit court. And that little bit of experience in my grad school program, and I share this with all the folks who are in education positions, getting your students that little bit of experience really pays dividends. And I'm 12 years into my ADR career. I'm the training manager for DC Courts multi-door. So it really paid dividends once I got that staff position. I mean, hundreds of cases later, it really set me up really, really well. And I'm just so thankful for that program at Salisbury to set me up in that way to have some cases when I graduated. So it is getting that little bit of experience, becoming a process expert if you don't have that, you know, earlier career in law or something else to have that other expertise. It was really great and really fortunate for that.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Emmett. I think that, so first of all, shout out to community mediation programs, because a lot of us, I think I got some of our initial experience through those, and court-based mediation programs. They're an incredible way to get experience and tends to be really open about inviting folks who may not fit, again, you know, just a more narrow mold of what a mediator is. And I'm going to come back to a little bit about your specific path, because I think a lot of people on the blog share it. And so I want to talk about why that works, and then ask some questions about it as well. So we're going to come back to that. Let me go to Stephanie, and then I will go to that next piece. Stephanie? I think you're on mute still. I think it was unmuted and then muted, sorry.
Sorry, I'm having so many problems today with the computer. I'm an attorney, but I really haven't had the opportunity to practice for a very long time, but I have cerebral palsy, and I'm really looking into educational law and educational mediation, because I've had some difficulty getting services for my son, and I'm really interested in it. I've taken, you know, in New York, they have a generalized basic mediation class, and I'm working on hopefully eventually becoming an educational mediator or a impartial hearing officer, but I really don't know where to start and don't know where to begin. And I attended law school. I graduated many years ago, but I really haven't had an opportunity. So I'm really looking for some sort of opportunity, hoping that it will become my full-time career. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there and see if you had any suggestions.
Thanks, Stephanie. And I appreciate that you're able to take a situation that is, I have to imagine, not only frustrating, but maddening for your son, and the frustrations with any system and getting services into I'm going to go out and I want to serve this community. Sorry, did you want to share?
No, first of all, I just want to figure out how to take my hand off. So.
Oh, no problem. You just hit, I think if you hit, yep, you got it. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sure. So Jay, yeah, go ahead.
It's been extremely frustrating. And I know that, he's only in preschool, and I can only imagine what lies ahead of me. And I'm dreading it, to be quite honest with you. And I'm looking into all sorts of services for him and therapies for him. And I'm doing the best that I can at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm
hoping to use my law degree as kind of a, push to get the services that I need. And I think it's worked a little bit at this point, but again, I fear going forward.
Yeah. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that this community also can support you. So I just want to, folks in chat, you can direct chat with Stephanie if you go to chat and you click on the little arrow to the right where it says everyone in meeting. And you guys, we might be able to provide you some connections, support, networking. And then I also just want to say Jason is an incredible resource. He is all the way out in California, but is an incredible resource if you want to reach out to him as well.
Thank you so very much.
Sure. So these examples and these experiences, I think, continue to sort of drive why I'm passionate about this video blog. But I think I want to go back to something that Emmett just shared about, I'm in school, I'm getting a degree program. I get this little experience at a court program, a community mediation program that leads me to a job. Like, yes, like that's exactly what happened to me. I was interning at the Florida court system, and lo and behold, the woman leaves to move on to something else who was managing me, and I get her job a month before I graduate with my college degree. Like, oh my God, I was stoked. So it's fantastic, right? And what did that trajectory mean? What types of jobs was I then eligible for by going down this path? Again, can you all check out in the chat, Nikki putting in information about the Salisbury program. Love it. Thank you, Nikki. So what I want to do is just ask you to take a look. I'm going to share my screen again. And I want to just look at some of the examples of the videos that we have, the stories that people have. So there's over 50 stories. If you go to the blog, like you just keep scrolling. One of the things that you can do on the blog is just select these tags. Y'all, I'm not like, it's not perfect. So and this is not a scientific study, but I think it gives us a good sense of what's going on. So when you think about family mediation, all of these individuals at one point or when they were in the blog were working in the family area out of 50. Let me look at who is a lawyer for their background. That can't be right. Let me hit JD. I probably did a better job tagging JD. Okay, so a lot of people with law degrees. Let me go to who might be working, who might have founded their own company. So that's a fair number of people. Who is mediating full-time? Okay. And then let me go to who is working in administration. So this one is sort of the longest. And so let me go back to my slides and just ask if we can think about any trends for individuals who are pursuing ADR as a first career. So what process do they tend to be able to work within? Mediation, arbitration, what type of role do they tend to have? Are they a neutral? Are they administrator? Are they training? In what context? Are they in court? Are they in community mediation? Or are they a private service provider, working with a private service provider? And I'll just ask, I just went through very quickly some of the videos. We've also heard a few stories. Does anybody hear or see any trends of the types of roles that people have if they chose ADR as a first career? So one of the things that I was told when Emmett and I sort of have a similar path. When I went into, when I started out right after undergrad and then after law school, working in community mediation, it's actually a different path, but than what Emmett shared. So I don't want to necessarily equate the two, was that I was limiting myself. I was never going to become a commercial mediator. I was never going to make a ton of money. And I was never going to have a job that had a lot of status. According to the person who gave me this feedback. And that bothered me because, as I told you, I was like, I got my dream job in my 20s. It was a part-time position. It was in a small county courthouse. I made a very little money, but it was my dream job. Today, I work at Northwestern Law School. Like I feel quite privileged. I make less than 90% of my students upon their first day at their new job. So, that's humbling. Well, that's kind of annoying, but I'm fine. Like all's good, right? All is good. And so this notion that somebody sort of shared with me that a path for ADR as a first career puts you in certain positions. Let me share with you just a little bit of research that came out around same time as the blog. Gina Viola Brown, who was with the ABA section on dispute resolution, and Andrea Schneider, who used to be at Marquette and is now at Cardozo, did some research in 2014 to talk about the gender breakdown for mediators, that while there was actually a fair number of female mediators, the types of cases and contexts in which they were mediating was very different than their male counterparts. So it tended to be that the male mediators were working in commercial setting, where female mediators were working in employment, community, family. And those come with a financial difference, right? You're going to make less money in one versus the other. Now, for me, I was like, well, how much less money? Because like, I feel good, I'm fine. But that is also a privilege as somebody who chose to go to the University of Missouri and didn't take on a ton of law school debt. I have students who are graduating with $250,000 in debt. And so to be like, oh yeah, start ADR as a first career, great idea. And then they're in debt forever. Like, am I setting them up for success? So then I start hearing that voice in the back of my head. Should I be promoting ADR as a first career? Let's go talk a little bit about race. Lawrence Gordon wrote this great article a couple years ago. Let me see if I can actually put this in chat. Here we go. Oh, Nikki's probably got it. Why am I trying to do this? Nikki's on it. Lawrence Gordon wrote this great article about mediation in Florida and compared the population of people of color in Florida versus the number of mediators who are people of color. And you can see There's 16% of the general Florida population are have consider themselves people of color, and Florida mediators was 3.8%. That's a huge difference, right? And so what types of opportunities are we providing people? If you go and you look at the blog, 20% of the individuals on this blog are individuals of color. That's awesome. And does that mean that if the types of positions you're able to get as an ADR's first career opportunity, is it actually holding us back from some of those more lucrative types of mediation positions? I don't know the answer to it, but it is something I've been thinking about. I was talking to another student. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I was talking to another student about my decision to go to the University of Missouri for law school, again, just to get that JD, and how I was, I was looking at a top 14 law school or the University of Missouri. University of Missouri had the #1 ADR program. That's all I cared about. So I went to the University of Missouri. Great connections, and has been really good for my career. The student of mine who is a Black Muslim woman who wears traditional hijab said, that would not be a choice I could make, because I need to have every single credential behind me in order to have the credibility in all of these spaces. So to choose to go to a school that isn't in the top 14 for her would have closed a lot of doors. And I would assume it would close a lot of doors for me, and I'm sure it did close some doors for me, but some doors were still open, right? So when I'm out talking about ADR as a first career, Harvard asked me to come and talk on a panel because of this blog. And we go through this great, Colin Rule was there. I mean, it was so fun. Yay, ADR is a first career. And then somebody says, well, I'm a 2L and I'm looking at a summer associate position at a large law firm or interning at a mediation program, right? Getting that experience. And everybody goes, oh, do the mediation, it's gonna be great, it's gonna be great. And then I'm the last person to speak on that question and for the entire panel. And I said, don't shut that door unless you know that's a door you don't want open. And some of the folks were like, wait, why did you just say that? You're supposed to be the one that's out there touting ADR as a first career. It is possible. It is possible. And I think I've just, as with everything, it's a little more nuanced. It's a little more of an individual decision. It really depends on who we are, how we identify, how we exist in this world, how others see us in this world. Those are real challenges and opportunities that we have to recognize when thinking about making this choice. So that has sort of changed my some of the ways that I've thought about this. And I'm just curious if there's any reactions to that that you all might have, or examples, stories of your own, like, yes, this is something I want to do, but I don't think that is not a door that I felt like I could close. Does anybody want to share some of your experiences with this? P. Tyler Portner.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having this this event. Just something I'm experiencing trying to start out is I think it's already been kind of addressed, but it's the fact that I'm not an ex-judge. I'm not deep in a law career. I'm on the other side. So it's there's, and maybe it's natural and maybe it's important, but there is a lack of credibility that's implied, even if it's I've got some mediations behind me, but I'm finding it hard to even get volunteer positions at this point. So I guess that's where I'm at now, as somebody that really wants to make this a major part of, how I spend my days and, how I make my living. It's right now I'm afraid that the answer is wait 30 years. And I hope that's not the case.
Yes, you have just described the state of our field. And I'd like to think it's changing. And I do think it's changing. I think that there are more opportunities out there than there even were 8 years ago. But I still think the question is, what types of opportunities are there? Because there is still, or at least my perception is that there's still this preference for retired judges, senior litigators to be mediators. And I think what I've seen in the blog, and love to hear other people's thoughts on this, is finding an area where you can mediate that isn't in competition with the commercial litigators, the retired judges. So like I said, Jason went into education law. Oh gosh, where are you? A couple speakers ago talked about working in the church space. I went into focusing on being an administrator, helping to manage mediation programs. And so there can be different paths to getting into ADR, but notice that none of those are the same or in competition with the retired judge who tends to be doing the commercial litigation case. And most of these other paths are going to pay a little less. So is that, thank you so much, Nikki. It was Mr. Smith. Following these other paths could lead to a difference in pay. It could lead to a difference in an external perception of status. I had somebody just tell me, they're like, you have destined yourself to low status career. And I was like, status according to who? Because honestly, I feel like I have the most incredible status because I am doing this full time. Like it means everything to me. It is everything that I love. And like those stories that I shared before about people, it's in my blood. It just fits. It's what I need. But my daughter goes to public school here in Chicago. She's like, why? I have friends that go to private school, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're not going to private school, kid. Sorry, I don't have that chance. We're looking at colleges. We're like, how is that going to impact us? Right. So there are realities. And I'm doing something I love. And that for me is of a higher value. And it just sort of depends on what makes sense for you as an individual. I'm going to stop ranting because other people have their hands raised and they're probably going to say something better. So Emily and then Donna.
Hi. So this is definitely a really important topic. And I think, even being part of ACR National for many, many years, they often have how to jumpstart your, career in ADR. And very often that type of advice is very individualized, right? Like create a niche. And so I think it is important because it's where we are as a field, but it does concern me about how we think about the field as we're continuing to grow, because it creates this space where we're growing out, not growing up, because I start to think about that in terms of the larger community and what are the barriers to entry for people to be able to choose ADR as a career. And some of those are internal, like the types of ages and credentials and things like that. And then there's also external because of the lack of kind of how people know what, my entire kind of career, people are like, oh, so what is conflict resolution, right? Or what is the ADR? And you have to kind of explain that, right? And so the lack of kind of social awareness of that is another barrier entry. And I think sometimes this individualized space, it is appropriate because that's one of the ways to enter. But I do fear for what does that mean in the long run, Yeah,
totally agree. I just want to add to that, and then we're going to go to Donna and Erica. Nikki mentioned the work that JAMS is doing. A lot of groups are looking at this, and in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, I know we had renewed focus on diversity and the need for more diversity initiatives. This is a report from CEDAR out of the UK about exactly what you were just describing, Emily. So the number of different challenges along the path to a career in mediation, that it's not just, am I going to get selected for the cases? It's the, do I see people like me in the mediation skills training that motivates me to even want to attend something like that? Is a mediation skills training something that is even on my radar when it's run by this community, right? And so the number of different challenges along the mediator's career path. So I just wanted to reiterate that. This is going to be in the slides, and a citation, I will throw this in chat, Nikki. I'll put in chat, but you'll have all of this in the slides as well. Let's turn it over to Donna.
Hi, Alyson. Hi, everyone.
Hi, thanks again, Donna, for really spearheading this whole thing.
I started the spark with you, Alyson. I will say that you took it many steps ahead of us. So I'm currently in Florida. I was at Cardozo Law School for 6 years, and I was recruited to run the mediation clinic in Gainesville. I didn't realize, Alyson, we have to have a long conversation about your Gator connection. I didn't know. But I'm so impressed with also what's happened in your view, Alyson. We've gained, both of us, I believe, reading glasses with our age, because I don't remember you having reading glasses. So we now also have a more nuanced approach, as I think both of us are hitting more of a mid-career in our advice about this. I think the one thing that is the same, which is that one of my friends once said this in French. She said, bon courage, which is, I guess, like, please have courage. So I think for Alyson and I, it was always important to have the courage to do this. And that was what sparked that initial conversation, that we want people to know, like Nikki. I saw Matt Latimer was here. He's also a Cardozo grad. So other graduates of Cardozo and other institutions that went and did this at the beginning. But I love the nuanced view, Alyson, and I'm with you, that it's, you have to not have huge law school loans so that you can take I had the same thing, the $50,000 a year child protection mediator position at the New York City Family Courts. So I really love the view. I think the other thing that I would just add is get yourself a mentor, and really find that person. Maria's a mentor to her students. I know at Cardozo, Professor Love and now Robin Weinstein and Andrea Schneider. There are lots of mentors and people that can help you along the way, because I think you do need an individualized kind of consultation as to what's wise for you to do to get yourself there. I will say that I feel like New York, is an amazing place. Maria knows this as well, with the presumptive ADR initiatives that are happening in the courts. They hired 10, 15 high-level ADR coordinators. They did need a law degree and 8 years of practice experience to get those, but those were very, prestigious positions. We're talking about, status. Those were all six-figure salaries to run those programs. And they hired multiple ones. There's all those opportunities for volunteer work now on panels through Zoom with New York City Small Claims. New York City Family Court has 2 lowly paid panels for custody and visitation, and child protection or dependency mediation. I'm on both of those panels, and they, bring in new mediators to do those diverse mediators to do those cases because of the populations that they're also dealing with. And so I do think that there's a lot of excitement around New York for some paid panels and the Community Dispute Resolution Center. So I think there are ways really to get into it. And then I just did want to say that I recently started 2 years ago with COVID, a very, kind of high-end niche practice. Finally, I started my private practice after 15 years of doing this. I finally started a very nice hourly, but in parenting coordination, because my niche was always family. And so I do post-divorce private mediations now, or med-arbs, hybrid processes. Anyway, as always, Alyson, this is my favorite topic. So, and I'm happy to be a mentor or a person that people to reach out. I'll put my name and my information in the chat. For those who are New York based, I have a lot of experience in New York. That's where I was trained and everything. And I'm just happy to be a resource for those. So feel free to reach out to me. And it's lovely to see my New York friends.
Thank you so much, Donna. And Donna, as a mentor, is no joke. There are a number of people on the blog who actually she mentored who started their career in ADR. One of them being Ashley Davis, who was in that Foursquare conversation that I keep going back to. So thanks so much, Donna. It's good to see you, and in glasses. Erica.
Hey, thank you so much. Donna, I will probably take you up on that and reach out for some mentorship. I also recently graduated and have my I've got my mediation and restorative practices and conflict dispute resolution, all of that stuff under my belt. And I'm finding that in Missouri, there's not a lot of understanding of what mediation is. So I'm finding that to get business, it's gonna take a lot of education in the community. So starting pages, working with the jams, presenting at conferences on workplace conflict. I did find that once I became trauma informed, certified in trauma informed practices, I was able to get a little bit more footing on the ground. But I find that most of my work comes virtually. So a lot of that means that I have to kind of spread my wings and be comfortable to be online mediation. And I want to say lucky, I'm not sure that that's the word. My mediation training was all online. So we did all virtual mediations for it. So I was able, I've sat in rooms and done all that, but that gave me a different perspective. But I do agree, it's hard to get past those retired judges and the attorneys. So I guess it's a matter of I make my fees a little lower, so it's a little more enticing for them. So I'm grateful to be here. So I say all of this to say thank you. And I'm glad to be here and hear that this is not an isolated struggle, that this is across the country.
And Erica, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know we're going to end shortly. I'm going to give Matthew a chance to share his thoughts. And I want to talk about the role technology has played and how I think that's going to open up some additional opportunities. So Matthew.
Great, thank you so much. I just wanted to share, Alyson, my mediation background kind of came in a very different path. I actually did mediation, as Donna was saying, at Cardozo. I did a mediation clinic, and then I spent 8 years in corporate America doing something totally different, and then coming back through community mediation, and then finding out about the Department of Justice, actually from a posting from Maria many years ago. But what I wanted to say is that the Community Relations Service actually has some positions open now for recent graduates. So it's USDOJ, it's actually justice.gov/CRS, or you can find me after the call. I'll put my email in the chat, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm not in New York. I think the nearest position is in Philly, but that is a recent graduate. I don't think you need a graduate degree for those. I was actually just looking at one of the postings that's in San Francisco. They want you to have 24 credits of conflict resolution or equivalent experience. Something that you could probably get through a local community mediation center, and you can start your career with the federal government doing community mediation. Community mediation, as well as dealing with violence crimes and the like. So if you want to find out a little bit more about that, I'll put my contact in the chat, and certainly could talk to you a little bit more about that. Thanks so much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Matthew. That's so exciting. And Nikki's already started putting this, I think, in chat. Emmett has followed up and I think might have put the job posting in there. So thank you, amazing community, making sure that we all have this information. I have in the past seen things like court-based programs, community mediations, government agencies tend to be a great entry point for those of us who chose ADR as a first career, as opposed to the private neutral side. I think that maybe that's an example of what Matthew is also sharing. So that information is in chat. It sounds like Maria is a great treasure trove of some of this information as well, since her name's been mentioned many times, of potential opportunities as well. And I think Donna's, the opportunities that Donna mentioned were also posted in chat. So I want to just take a couple minutes to talk about where else I think things might be going based on really what you guys have already shared about the role of technology. So in 2018, Noam Ebner, who is on here, Professor Ebner, good to see you, Noam, and I wrote this article about ADR and the use of technology at the table of mediation. So instead of seeing technology as either using technology in mediation to create an online dispute resolution program in a virtual space, or doing technology or doing mediation in person with absolutely no technology. We are like, just as Nikki said it, I think before our meeting began, there's actually so many ways that we can use technology at the table, or whatever that table, if it's in person or virtual, that enhances what we do. And so I'm going to put that a link to that article. I think I did. Yep. Okay. A link to that article in the chat if you want to check that out. We try to identify all of these different moments in the life of sort of a case and in the career of a mediator where you might be able to bring in technology. I'm going to skip these next slides, but I have my students create technology-based prototypes to enhance our mediation field, recognizing that our field really has a long way to go. And, you know, we all did amazing moving to Zoom. We did great, better than I ever imagined. But there's so much more that's possible in technology and in our field, which I can talk about. But there's whole new practice areas. Mediating blockchain disputes and cryptocurrency disputes. There's new contexts in which we can do mediation. The metaverse, when conflicts happen, not just online because there has been a transaction online, but literally because virtual entities have communicated through their avatars and there's a conflict, we might need to have mediators who know how to mediate in the metaverse. There's new roles that have been created because of the increase of technology in mediation. I told you all about that recent graduate who started working at a big law firm, but as a staff position. She got hired as a legal innovation analyst. And she says her job's a problem solver. And I know we tell our law students, lawyers are problem solvers, and it's true. But for a lot of first-year associates, all they do is read those documents, do research. They're not getting a chance to do a lot of the hands-on problem solving. And she is straight out of the gate as a legal innovation analyst. She's working with individuals from all levels of the law firm in all different contexts. She's using her mediation skills to ask them, what's really going on? What's the heart of the problem? Getting to their interests, then designing, creating, brainstorming new potential solutions to address that problem. So she's actually doing this problem solving work hands-on. She actually started before she even graduated law school. So there's new roles that are coming up that aren't even called mediators, but that use a lot of these skills that might be of interest, especially to this next generation or to people who are tech savvy. Ashley Davis in the video that I was showing you all earlier. So Ashley is the woman down here. She mentioned in this video that she just wishes there was a more structured understanding of the various paths that we have, especially for lawyers coming out of law school, because lawyers tend to be put on a very specific path. You're going to practice law. You're going to practice law as a solo practitioner in a large law firm or for the government, but you're practicing law. And I've been working on a new competency model that tries to create a more holistic understanding of what it takes for us to be successful legal professionals, and use the term, again, broad legal professional broadly, so that we are incorporating not only practicing attorneys, but also what is often called our allied professionals and alternative careers that may not be the practice of law, but certainly are within the law. And I'm able to do that through this competency model by showing that the different skill levels that people need differ depending on the type of role you go into. And because this shifting midpoint can really be moved anywhere on the model, we have an infinite number of visualizations of different paths and roles someone could take. So this is just 4 different ones. For somebody who goes into solo practitioner, maybe they do need equal skill in all of the 3 areas of this model. But somebody who goes and becomes like Anna, a legal innovation analyst, she needs to know the law because she's working at a law firm. But notice the bottom of the triangle, the dark blue has been pulled, so it's very narrow. So she's got knowledge, but it's not her depth of expertise. That is in her problem solving skills, her ability to relate to other people, and her understanding of how to use innovation, technology, and process improvement to improve what their work-life balance is. So I could go into this, but we don't have time, where you could see how this structure is trying to, at least in the legal context, provide individuals a visualization and a tool to understand the many different paths that we have and the infinite number of roles that exist out there as we try to help people see what's possible and have, to use Donna's word, the courage to explore those and individualize what those students might need, given whatever their background is, situation is, and goals. So with 4 minutes to spare, we can just open it up for Q&A if you have comments in the chat or anything that you want to share with each other. Nikki did put my website where more information about the Delta model is also available there, and a copy of that Mind the Gap article by Noam Ebner and I. And as Nikki said, I think that's also in the chat as well. Questions, comments?
I just have one comment. This is wonderful, but it's wonderful for a narrow segment of the ADR world. I think a lot of us have been practicing for many, many, many years, and our paths may have been very different, but we've been mute because you're talking about other people. I just wanted to say that. I mean, it's cool. It's a great approach, and I'm sure there are people who have benefited enormously.
Well, I appreciate that, Julie. I think for folks who are now being seen as the mentors, recognizing that there are these other paths that may have looked different than your path, hopefully can help you support those younger new mediators, and saying it is possible, and the questions that we need to be asking around it. So I appreciate that that comment, though, that this may not necessarily be directly relevant for everyone on the call, but hopefully you can use this in your support of others.
I do have another niche. I'm also a domestic violence victim response responder. And I have used in that work my mediation skills all the time, even though that's not a requirement to be what I do or be what I am. So that's just for those of you out there who are looking for niches. There's a lot of help needed in the DV and sexual assault arena.
Well, I think that goes to that sort of like that legal innovation analyst. We don't always need to look for jobs that have the word mediator in it.
Right.
Because our skills are so valuable in a number of different places. So I appreciate that, Julie.
Yeah, Maria used to post all kinds of listings for jobs that required some sort of dispute resolution skills, but were not called dispute resolvers. You haven't done that in a while, but
that says something about my workload, right? I'll try to remember to do that, Julie. And that was one of the points I was going to make, is that it's really important to think of how universal and invaluable these skills are, but to label them as mediation probably isn't how we're going to get, people in the workplace, especially since it still gets confused with processes like meditation, or people are just terrified of the label that we attach, and the kinds of stereotypes that might even go with mediation, that you're seen as weak, or that you have to compromise, you have to give in, whatever the stereotypes are out there, and that it's not seen as the invaluable kind of process that we do. But one of the things that occurred to me while you were talking is that this conversation has sort of shifted a bit from don't leave your day job to how to start your day job, which is really interesting. Historically, we always heard, the phrase, don't leave your day job, when you're thinking about mediation. And today we were talking about how to start your day job. So thank you so much for getting us to this new place. And Alyson has agreed to stay on, I think, for a few minutes. We are going to turn off the recording. Thank you so much for this amazing morning. And with that, Nikki, I think you've turned off the recording. For those of you who'd like to hang out for a few more minutes for informal chat, we're still here. And thank you everyone for coming, and see you next month.